大家好. It's almost Mid-Autumn Festival, so I'm making some mooncake, starting by making some lotus paste. I have some lotus seeds, soak. I'm pulling out the little green piece, and I'll be ready to make lotus paste. The green part of the lotus seed is very bitter, so you want to make sure to remove that. Now that all of the lotus seeds are halved, I'm going to soak them again so they can finish and be nice and soft for me to work with when I go to make the paste. When you're ready to start the lotus paste, put your halved lotus seeds in a small pot. I have a medium pot here, and put water over them. You only want about 1 inch over the lotus seeds. I'm going to heat them to a rolling boil and then turn them down to simmer. And they're gonna go for about an hour on the stove. The lotus cooked, they simmered for about an hour. I left them in the pot to cool down for several hours. You wanna make sure you can handle them. They're not too hot, especially because I'm gonna blend up the lotus seed paste. I don't have a big blender, so I'm just using my NutriBullet, and I also am boiling some water so I can put that in there too. You never want to overload when you're using a NutriBullet. So I have 2 lotus seed pastes, and this is where you're going to have to use your eye to determine how much water, hot water, you're going to need. I've added about 1/4 cup if I had to guess. A little bit more to this one because it has a little bit more lotus seed, and now we'll go ahead and blend it up. Okay, so I have my grinder on. I'm gonna go ahead and put it on here. So right away I can tell good blending on this, but not quite enough liquid. It's very, very thick, which is great, but I need to add just a little more liquid, and I'm talking about a couple of tablespoons to get it to where I want it. Your lotus seed paste should look about like this when it's all ready. No chunks, nice and smooth, and beautiful. All right, so after I'm just going to get all of the little last bits of the lotus seed paste out. I'm putting it in this big Dutch oven, and now I'm ready to cook it. So I've turned the cast iron Dutch oven here a little bit higher than medium. Some of you may remember from our earlier videos, but my stove heats very low heat. So you want to use a medium heat. If yours runs hot, make sure you turn it down. If it runs cooler like mine, I have all the lotus paste, that beautiful paste that we blended up here in my cast iron. I have powdered sugar and I have oil. I did buy maltose this year, but I decided that I'm just going to stick with this recipe because it's very easy and pretty much most people can find vegetable oil and powdered sugar in their cabinet. I'm going to be adding the oil and the sugar really in 3 different batches. This cooks for at least 30 minutes. What I really like to do first is just make sure that the lotus seed paste is warm, and then I'll go and add about 1/3 of the ingredients. So the lotus paste is getting warm. You can see it's starting to get easier to stir around. So the first recipe I found called for a lot of sugar. So I'm just gonna use about half of it. This is the first group. Add some sugar, add a little oil. It really doesn't have to be exact, but the goal here is that every time I add ingredients, I make sure all of those ingredients are fully incorporated in my lotus seed paste. There's not going to be any residual oiliness or overt sugar. It's all going to come together and it's going to be absolutely beautiful. It's really important when making lotus seed paste that you don't walk away from it. This is a very labor-intensive process, and you really do need to stir constantly. You want to make sure everything is fully incorporated, that everything is correct. So please make sure that you are continuing to stir all the time. This is going to be imperative. So when you get to the end of cooking your lotus paste, you'll see that it's slightly darker in color from when you started. And the most important way to tell if it's done is if it can hold itself together. So it's basically, as you can see me stirring it here, its own beautiful little ball, and it is holding together nicely. All of the oil, all of the sugar is in, and we have our lotus paste ready to cool. It's gotta cool to room temperature, and then I'm gonna cool it overnight to use in mooncakes. You can also use lotus seed paste in things like pho. You could eat it with a spoon. It's really, really delicious. And here's the lotus paste. It looks beautiful. You can see it's all in a container. It's nice and firm to touch. I let this cool a bit. I'm going to put it in the fridge, and it'll be ready to use tomorrow for my mooncakes.